Hello and welcome, or welcome back to my channel, The History Student. Today, I'm going to take you on a tour of one of England's finest surviving Tudor buildings, the extraordinary Acton Court. Acton Court is a Grade 1 listed building near the village of Iron Acton in Gloucestershire, around 9 miles from the city of Bristol. It is perhaps most famous for hosting King Henry VIII and his second wife Anne Boleyn during their 1535 summer progress of the West Country, which lasted for 3 months and saw Henry and Anne visit many houses throughout Gloucestershire, Hampshire, Wiltshire, and so on. Now, what makes Acton Court so very unusual and utterly fascinating to any Tudor history lover is, ironically, due to many, many years of neglect, and the building is now an extremely rare example of almost untouched Tudor Royal State apartments that have survived virtually intact. Walking through the house and grounds at Acton Court is as close to time travel as we're ever likely to get, and really is something that needs to be experienced in order to fully understand just how incredible this building is. Now for a bit of context. The property was owned by the Poyntz family from 1364 until 1680, when the line of succession came to an end and the property was sold. Converted and used as a tenant farmhouse for many years, the building came dangerously close to ruin by the early 20th century until it was saved by the British campaigner Dorothy Brown MBE. Now, it was Nicholas Poyntz who was the owner of Acton Court at the time of Henry and Anne's 1535 visit, and in a magnificent display of loyalty to his king, Poyntz went to the great trouble of building a brand new east wing onto the existing manor house in only 9 months for the royal couple to stay in during their visit. These brand new state apartments were lavishly decorated with extravagant wall paintings and even the Tudor version of an ensuite, all of which survive to this day. Upon arriving at Acton Court, you'll be greeted by friendly guides and lovely gardens, including a walled wildflower meadow and orchard, along with stunning Old English and wild roses, even examples of rare grasses and plants which were popular during the Tudor era. But we'll look at the gardens a little later. For now, let's take a look inside the house. You're now standing in the east wing of Acton Court, which was built in only 9 months specifically for Henry and Anne's visit. This upper floor consists of 3 rooms which Henry used as his royal state apartments, and you're currently standing in the presence chamber. Anne was likely lodged in a separate part of the house on the ground floor with her ladies-in-waiting, as was the case with the location they had just come from, Thornbury Castle, but sadly the original layout of these rooms has been lost over time. Now, the largest of the 3 rooms, the presence chamber, was used as a space for Henry to greet his guests and to entertain. These rooms would have been lavishly decorated with Henry's own possessions which he would have brought with him. Extravagant tapestries would have lined the walls, fires would have been lit, and herbs and lavender would have been scattered across the floors. It's incredible to think that Henry VIII himself stood in this exact spot, looking out of this window across the green fields and quiet countryside. Let's move on to the next room. We're now standing in the privy chamber. Henry would have used this room as a place to retire, and you would have to be very well connected in order to be granted permission to enter. But the most incredible part of this room can be seen above our heads, the spectacular Tudor frieze which would have been painted specifically for Anne and Henry to enjoy as they walked through these rooms. This design is known as antique, and no other antique work of a similar quality survives. By happy accident, it was protected by a coat of limewash painted over it sometime in the 1700s, and it was during Acton Court renovation works when a team of conservators successfully removed the limewash to reveal this remarkable piece. This design would have gone all around the four walls of this room and depicted the four seasons. However, this is the only piece that survives and depicts the summer, which is suggested by the strawberries that can be seen on the centre panel. Other notable features in this room include the original Tudor panelling below the frieze around the right-hand side doorway. As we leave the privy chamber and move into the final room upstairs, we'll pass by a passageway on the left-hand side which features an original spiral staircase. It dates from around 1576, and the central wooden pillar may have been a ship's mast. However, this hasn't been proven, but it is known that the Poyntz family owned ships in nearby Bristol. Let's move on to the final room, Henry VIII's bedchamber. This room would have been considerably larger during Henry and Anne's visit, but has been made smaller gradually over the years. The wooden panelling on the walls has been salvaged from other areas of the house, but when Henry stayed here, the original panelling would have been similar in colour to the panelling we've just seen in the previous room. However, the fireplace and elm floorboards are original, and it's here that I'll include a very brief clip. That is the sound of 16th century squeaky floorboards that Henry VIII himself would have heard, and is actually the same sound you've been hearing throughout this video as we've been moving from room to room. Through a small doorway on the right-hand side of the fireplace is another remarkable Tudor survivor. This room was hidden in the masonry for many years until it was discovered during conservation works in 1994. It would have been King Henry's privy, aka his ensuite. Let's make our way back downstairs. Here we can see a series of lovely old corridors and stone fireplaces, along with a stunning example of a Tudor Queen's court gown, which is likely similar to what Anne may have worn during her time here. Let's leave the main house now and head back out into the garden. Before we walk around the gardens, let's pause to have a look underneath the open porch of the main house. Here you'll see a piece of graffiti which is said to be of John Cabot's ship, the Matthew, which sailed to mainland America. Graffiti such as this isn't unusual in historical buildings and is one example of the many markings at Acton Court that date as far back as the 1500s. As mentioned earlier, Acton Court is a Grade 1 listed building, and the entire site is a Scheduled Ancient Monument. Beneath the bridge in the gardens, you'll see the excavated moat that once surrounded the house. It was during excavations here that many late 16th century clay tobacco pipes were found. It is said that Walter Raleigh visited Acton Court in the late 1500s, where reputedly he introduced the smoking of tobacco. The meadows at Acton Court provide the perfect natural habitat and hunting ground for various birds of prey, and Acton Court even has its own resident beekeeper. Once you've finished touring the house and grounds, there is a little tea and coffee shop where you can sit outside, weather dependent, and take in the history that surrounds you. For more information on visiting Acton Court, I've included a link to their website in the description. Do take a look. It's a fascinating property, and should be on the list of places to visit for any Tudor history enthusiast. That brings us to the end of this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, I'd very much appreciate you liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more historical content. But for now, it's bye from me, and as always, thanks for watching.